Hola, welcome to the Money Chisme podcast. I am your host, Violeta, a first generation Mexican immigrant. I am a real estate investor and business owner, pero let me tell you, just like other first gens, I was not taught much about personal finance. And I mean, needless to say, I was bien perdida, I was so lost, and I struggled a lot in my personal finance journey. And that's why I created the Money Chisme podcast, where each week I bring you the chisme on how to manage and grow your money and other money talks to help you to kick ass with your finances. All right, so let's get into this week's Money Chisme. Hola, hola. Welcome to another episode of the Money Chisme podcast. Y ahora it's just me today. Estoy solita, I'm by myself, but I want to get on here and, I want to talk about teaching financial literacy to the next generation, our kids. So in this episode, I want to share some tips on, how to teach your kids financial literacy, and I'm going to be sharing what I've been doing and what I plan to do to teach, my stepson and any future kids that I may have financial literacy. So let's get into the chisme. Okay, levanta la mano, raise your hand if you're like me and you grew up having no idea of what to do with your finances. Like cuando you were out in the adult world, oh my God, you're like, okay, ahora qué hago? It's no secret que in the Latinx community and the no los enseñan. Like we don't get taught how to manage our money, what to do with it, how it works, and it really messes us up at the very beginning because we had to scramble to try to figure this shit out, and we make a lot of mistakes. So that's why I want to talk about this. And finances is usually a taboo topic, especially in the Latino household. I mean, as a kid, nomás, all is that you see your parents go to work and they work long hours to make money, and all is that the bills are paid and you got food on the table. And other than that, you don't really get much besides, the typical, get a good stable job so you can afford to pay your bills and to live, and that, just to save up for a house, don't get into debt or anything like that. But for the most part, no, that's it. No te dice nada. So now that I am a stepmom, I'm thinking, how can I set him up to, not struggle like I did, and to learn how to deal with money and finances and all that. So now que queremos to teach our kids, no sabemos how to do it. Like, ¿qué hacemos? What's the first step? How do we even teach them? That's another thing that we also have to navigate now, especially as first generations. And, pero we have to do it porque financial education, it needs to be taught at a young age. In, because it takes some time to learn. It's a lot to learn, first of all, doing, your personal finances. Like, es bastante. Like, I remember struggling a lot. And, if you teach them at this young age, it sets them up. It gets them, all those skills. They start building those skills. And that way they don't struggle tanto like when they grow up. Pero, it doesn't have to be complicated. Puedes empezar, start with your everyday situations like budgeting and spending. And honestly, it really depends on, the kid's age, on how in depth you go into it, how complex you want to make it. Y también, your kid, what your kid can handle, what stage they're at, and you just go off of that. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just starting is the very first step. So por ejemplo, my stepson, he's 13, and we are teaching him financial literacy. This right now includes money management, and then we are going to move on into more complex topics like actually growing your money through investing, and even, the getting into the business side of things. And y la verdad, to be honest, ahorita está a little bit annoyed porque he wants to learn about stocks and investing and starting businesses porque, he wants to make money. He wants to be able to be financially free, y buy the things that he wants and all this stuff. I mean, he's very ambitious, and, that's awesome. Pero le puse que I had to freaking put a stop to that because, we have to build that foundation first. He needs to learn how money works and, the money management aspect of it, before you can even get into investing and running a business, because those skills are a major part of making sure that when you invest and you start a business or run a business, that it's successful. So taking the time to teach them how to do that, build that skill to manage their money, it's definitely the very first step that I wanted to take. And honestly, that should be the first step that anyone should take, regardless of their age, is to take that step of figuring out what is money, how does it work, what does it do, and then going on from there. So that's my first tip, is to start building that foundation, teach them how money works, what it is, what you can do, and, because all they see a veces is, you need something or you want something, and then you give them this piece of paper or you swipe this card and bam, ya lo tienes, right? And a great way to do this is, by giving them an allowance. The amount depends on you, and based on their age, what do you feel like they need or whatever. But for them to, start understanding money, you have to let them play with it, right? And so allowance is a great way to start so they can practice money management with your guidance. And, you are the safety net porque empiezan a practicar. Porque in real life, you mismanage money and pues ya te chingaste because now you made this mistake. It sets you back. It could even be, mess you up big time to where it takes you a long time to recover. And so by giving them an allowance, les da la chance to practice what you're teaching them, building those skills, and they have that freedom to make mistakes without the big major consequences. Now, with the allowance, it might not be in your budget, pero you could do other things. It could be cash if you want to, or some people get creative with it and make fake money or use fake money like Monopoly money. A veces I've seen some apps that have a system to where they get some form of currency, which is it's fake, but it gives them an idea of how to manage whatever currency they have. And it's good for younger kids, especially because van a perder the cash and you can't give them a card or anything like that. So you could do it that way as well. The goal is for them to get an idea of some type of currency and actually handling it and managing it. So with my stepson, we did start giving him an allowance cuando tenía I think he was 8, around there. And, it started off with him getting allowance for his chores. He had 2 or 3 chores, I think, taking out the trash and then washing some dishes. And I forgot what the third one was. But, he had an allowance, a weekly allowance at that time. And at that age, we weren't really trying to get him into budgeting and all that stuff, because I don't think at his age he was more into he didn't have the attention span to absorb all that yet. It was more of the idea was for him to understand what money was, how it worked, and really how to make, money transactions. Y también, if your allowance is gone for that week, pues ni modo, you have to wait for next week or next month or whatever. And then if he really wanted something, maybe, and this also helps practice another skill like negotiation. And maybe he's like, hey, maybe I'll go rake the leaves or something, or, to get the extra $10 for like Pokemon cards, because that's what he's into. He's still into that too. And so that's what the idea was for at that age, just getting the practice of handling money. Now that he is older, we have increased his allowance, and we actually took another step, and we got him his own checking account and a savings account, and that comes with a debit card. So he has his own debit card, his own checking account, and savings account. He is 13, so they are called like youth accounts or whatever. The banks allow that, pero vienen con restrictions, so they have more security in place because they do understand it, they're kids, and it's managed by us, the parents, whatever. But they have a real checking account and a real savings account, and it gets cuando they come of age, entonces it'll be a regular one for them or whatever. And we got him that this year, and of course we had the whole conversation of making sure he doesn't lose the card and all those, the security stuff that goes with it, like make sure you don't share that, don't take pictures of it and give it to somebody, stuff like that, which he kind of already knows. But we still had that talk when he gave him the debit card. Pero it doesn't have to be the bank as well. There's apps, like I think we actually first started with the Cash app, that you get a card, and you could it's basically a preloaded card, and get sent money, however money my husband would put on it, and he has the debit card, except he kept losing it, but he was a little younger at that time. So we did that for a little bit, but now we wanted to actually get him his own bank account and stuff like that, so he could start learning that as well, of how to manage his checking and savings account. So on top of that, we also wanted to get him more used to the idea of tracking his money. So we did give him 2 bills, and we gave him the phone bill, and he has his gaming subscriptions. So le vamos a dar, we're going to give him enough money to cover the bills, and then plus his allowance or whatever. And that's going to help him ensure, like, practice that he goes and checks his bank account, and it's like, oh, okay, on the first sale the phone bill, so dang, I can't buy that right now because it has to pay that first. Or later on, maybe he sees like $50, that he still has $50, but he has like he wants to buy something that's $45, but his subscription is $10. Pues entonces, he has to remember that, because then he might get overdrafted or whatever, right? Or it's just going to get declined. I think that's one of the security features. There's no overdraft. It just gets declined. So just things like that. That's the goal of the checking in the savings account too. So that way he could start learning to set money aside for a savings. So maybe he wants to get like a game or something that is a few $100s. Entonces puede mandarlo to a savings account and start learning to save up for something. So with that, we, create a budget, a simple budget. We sat down with him and, created like a very simple budget for him. I mean, like, he has 2 bills and just allowance coming in. So it's really not that, a complicated budget, right? And so, we guide him, and we talk to him about when he wants to make a purchase, and we walk him through that purchase, like, hey, remember? And then he's like, oh yeah. So it's just, practicing that muscle, I guess you could say. So that way he builds that skill up. So on top of that, we also started including him in our own budgeting. So that is another tip that I want to share, is to, include them in your budgeting plans. And if you're not doing that, if you're not having like a monthly one, I highly suggest that you start having a monthly or weekly budgeting, whatever it may be. And me and my husband started doing it monthly at this moment, and maybe later we'll do it more like bi-weekly or something. But ahorita we're starting with the goal of at least a monthly family meeting, to where we do budgeting for that month. And we sit him down, he's included. We sit him down, he manually writes everything down, like the money coming in, what needs to get paid, goals for that month, what are we trying to do, and then también goals for the future, like, hey, we want to plan a trip for next year, so we got to start setting money aside for that, stuff like that. And really explain to him all the stuff that we are tracking, things that go into it. And honestly, the very first time, it was so funny porque me and my husband were telling him, like, all right, this is the income and then all that stuff, and this was just like from our job. And he's like, oh wow, y'all have money and blah blah blah. And then after we started doing the bills and stuff, he's like, oh my god, where did it all go? And I was like, dude, like, bills, like, you don't realize everything. So that's why it's so important to budget and make sure you account for all your money. And so that was a good lesson for him right there, because it really was an eye opener for him, because he's just thinking of like, man, two parents that hacen buen dinero and stuff like that, but he doesn't understand what all gets paid as well, especially right now because it's bien expensive. So that was fun. And then it helps him practice like math skills. So he did all the calculations and the tracking. And one thing when you are doing this, don't hide the mistakes. So one of the months we went over budget of what we wanted to spend. I think it was food or something. Cause, we ate out a lot that month, and we were like, dang, we messed up. And we were very honest, and we're like, dang, we messed up. Like, we went over our budget, and like way over. Like, I don't know what the hell we were doing. And it was just a month that nadie quería cocinar or whatever. But we talked to him about that. We showed him. He saw, and, we all just had a conversation like, dude, okay, pues, ¿qué podemos hacer? What do we do for next month so we don't go over our budget like this month? And so we came up with some solutions and, working towards it. And so, but also not feeling guilty about it, because the last thing I want to do is do that, get him that financial anxiety, like feeling guilty over making money mistakes. So, okay, we messed up. What can we do better? And all right, we'll fix it next month and try our best to stay on track for the next month. Another tip is include them in your shopping trips. Now, I know it could be difficult, especially si tienes like, young kids or more than one kid. It might be difficult, but take them like maybe once a month or on occasion. It doesn't have to be every single trip, whatever you can do. But the idea is to take them while you're grocery shopping or running errands or whatever it may be. And then you just take the time to show them prices, teach them how it works, and, how to compare prices, and even, how to make a smart purchase, and all this to, so that way you could understand how to stay on budget, especially if you're doing like the monthly budgets and stuff like that. It's like, okay, well, see, this is how we are going to stay on budget, because we're making smart purchases, we're checking prices, we're keeping track as we go do our shopping. And, include them in that, so that will really set them up in the future when they have to do their own household budgets. And with that, también dale the tools. There's a lot of tools out there for kids. It could be like manual, like, hey, make them a little manual on a piece of paper, kind of like tracking or whatever. There's apps out there too that are free, and just like teaching them different ways and tools, and that they can use to track their budget or their purchases or whatever, teaching them to make a list like before you go grocery shopping. Is that can even be helpful, like, okay, no, we only came to get these 10 things, and allow yourself to get maybe one thing extra, like, because budget for one extra thing, or two, pero stick with that budget by not getting like all of a sudden you want cookies or whatever, and it wasn't in the plans or the budget. So just taking those steps to helping them have the skills, build the skills up, and giving them some ways, some tools to be able to do that. My next tip is to teach them how to set financial goals, and that are achievable. You want to have them set some short term and some long term. So some short term, that maybe they want to get some ice cream that weekend, whatever. Okay, cool. So make sure you save $10 for us when we go to the movies, or when we go grocery shopping. We're going grocery shopping this weekend. There's an ice cream shop next door. We can go get ice cream before we go to the grocery store, right? Así para que no te dé hambre too, because you don't want to go shopping for groceries when you're hungry. So that's an example, but also teaching them to do a long-term financial goal. So, for example, maybe they want a bike, and they could start saving up their allowance, and that's what we're teaching, my stepson going his checking and savings account. Is like, hey, at the end of the year, you're probably going to want some games or whatever. What can you do? How much do you want to put aside to make that bigger purchase, or to ensure that you have extra money in case something random, like maybe a new game comes out, like at the end of the year, so that way you could start planning for that. And this teaches them that delayed gratification, which is a very important life lesson, because even myself right now, I see that, especially in real estate investing, is a lot of people, that's one thing, is that they don't see that, they don't want to do that delayed gratification. They want everything like now, and some things take time, especially when you're investing, like stock investing and stuff like that. Some of it takes time to build up, and so by doing it early on, they learn that lesson, that sometimes it's worth it. Like, could you spend those $5 on an ice cream or a candy bar or whatever today, or put that aside, and at the end of the year you can get a video game or the bike or whatever, maybe some special toy. Once you have these basics, entonces, now you can start moving into teaching a bit more complex topics like a credit card and debt. And this is probably usually saved for like older kids, ya que tengan like 14 and up. And, once they're 16, then you go into like, their jobs and taxes and all that stuff. But with my stepson, lo que estamos haciendo is that, we're adding him to a credit card, and as an authorized user. So you can do that también, just like with the bank accounts, checking accounts, savings account, the same thing you can do with a credit card that you have. You have to see what age they can get it, but with mine at 13, I could add him as an authorized user. And this helps because when I was younger, my parents, and they still tell me, in some cases, to like pay everything with cash, and the only thing that you should get into debt for is when you buy a house, because you need a loan for that big purchase. But they don't talk about like credit cards and how debt could be used in your favor. And I'm an investor, a real estate investor, so I use debt a lot. I use it for my personal gain. Like, even though I owe money, it's also making me money. It's covering what I owe, the interest on it, and making me money. So like it can, like, debt can be utilized in a way to make profit, but you have to learn how to do it. Same thing with credit cards. Like, there's credit cards that have lots of perks, and like, you go on YouTube, or there's even Facebook groups on it. For almost every card that you can think of, there's a Facebook group for how you can maximize that credit card for points for your benefit, right? And so, and back then, the credit cards weren't that fancy where they had all these perks or whatever. It's a more common thing now, but we should definitely teach that, of how to properly use a credit card so they don't max out their credit cards to where it hurts their credit score. And then teaching them about credit score itself and how it works, what can affect it, and stuff like that. So that's stuff that we will start implementing probably next year, because we're still on the other phase of having him manage his money, budgeting, and all that stuff. So it'll probably be towards the end of the year, if not next year, where we start teaching him about credit and stuff. But definitely something that you want to include. And like I said, you could add them to a credit card that you have, because it allows them to practice using a credit card, but also it has the perk of building up their credit score. Now, make sure you're paying that credit card también, and using it wisely yourself, porque si no, los chingas también, like, then they end up with a bad credit score. But if you're good with credit cards, you can do that as well. Add them as an authorized user, allow them, or even see they're not there yet. Maybe your kids are older and you're now just starting that step, like they're 15, 16. You could still put them on a credit card. No se lo des. Don't give them the credit card, but at least them having their name on your credit card and you are using it is still building them credit as well. So you could set them up for success in that way, because then they don't have to suffer the consequences of having no credit, or all of a sudden they have their own job and they're out in the world and they get a credit card and they mess it up. And then after this step, what I plan to do is, now we will start getting into even the more complex stuff. By this time, yeah, he's going to be like having his own job and stuff, a little part-time job. And now he'll have extra cash. And then now he can start learning about investing, and maybe including him in the managing of our businesses. And that's when ya que we set up the foundation, now we can include him and teach him how to invest, the different types of investing, how it works, what's a 401k, Roth IRA, todo eso, all the more complicated stuff, how, a business kind of works. And then, like, we could have him start helping us manage the businesses, so that way he can start seeing, profits, and, making sure sales, and, all that stuff that goes with business. And he can learn about, the expenses of what to run a business. Because, like, right now, all he knows is, like, I want to start my own business and I'm going to make money y me voy a hacer rico, right? I'm going to be rich. But he doesn't realize, like, okay, you might be making, let's say, ponle que your business makes $1 million, but shoot, you might have 900,000 worth of expenses. So really, you're only making 100,000 to pay yourself, right? So really need, that's going to help him understand that as well when he is at that level, at that point. But my last tip really is, be an open book. Money talks, they're taboo in our community, but really, it really puts us at risk of making huge financial mistakes. Okay, it's going to have, some lasting effects, when we are out in the real world, when we are out here, yeah, as adults, adulting, and a lot of us dealt with that, when, I was over here adulting for the first time, like I didn't know what I was doing, and I messed myself up and set myself back. And a lot of, Latinos the same way. They unfortunately learned the hard way because we did not have those skills, and and we didn't have a safety net to be able to make those mistakes. So then we get out there, we make these financial mistakes, and we can't afford to do that. We have way too much that depends on us. Some of us are, providing for families. Some of us, are providing for multiple families, like our parents or whatever. And and we're already behind, like in the Latinx community. Ya estamos behind on the wealth gap, and like we don't have time and the ability to make these mistakes. So we want to make sure that we set up our kids for success and prevent that, from them, those big major money mistakes that messes them up for quite some time. And be a role model, practice what you preach. The kids are watching todo lo que están haciendo. Let me tell you, my stepson is quick to remind me, like, oh, didn't you say that you couldn't spend that? I was like, God, go play a video game. Pero I have to be honest. And then I was like, yeah, you're right, I'm not supposed to. I was like, fine, or whatever. And he keeps me in check sometimes. A veces me tiene que, like, stop me, like, oh, you said que we were gonna come over here and we're only getting this, and you're trying to go get that. Like, that's not in our budget. We didn't come for that. I was like, okay, I won't get it. So just being open and show them, and be that role model, and openly discuss these money matters with your kids. No les escondas cosas. I get it. Some things you don't want to tell them, like, hey, we're struggling so bad que a lo mejor we might get evicted. Okay, I understand that. But maybe have that money talk afterwards, cuando everything's taken care of. Like, ya que you fix that problem, you'd be like, hey, let's have a talk about this, and this is why this happened. We were able to solve it, or whatever it may be. Porque that teaches them as well to how they can prevent from being put in that situation as well. So just have open conversations, talk about your household expenses, your savings goal, all that stuff. Include them in that, and show them how you save money for emergencies, and how you are investing, what things you are doing. So, like, with my stepson, he knows I invest in real estate, so he's starting to ask me about that as well. Pero again, como te dije, I put a stop on that. I was like, all right, before I get you into it, like, I still have conversations right there, right? But I want him to learn the basics first, and have them involved in paying bills, stuff like that. Explain how a late payment works, and how it can affect you, both on your credit score and late fees. You don't want to pay late fees, that messes you up. And just just be open, and practice what you preach, stuff like that. So remember que, like, learning financial literacy, it takes time. Like, they're not gonna learn this like overnight. No las pongas ese pressure that they have to learn it like so fast or whatever. And it depends on the child's age or their ability to understand. Sometimes they're just not there yet. It depends on the kid's personality. My stepson, he was more más playful and stuff like that. He just could not, no tenía the attention span for me to sit him down and be like, hey, look, this is a budget, this is how bills work and stuff like that. He just did not have the attention span. Now at age 13, I could have really long talks with him, because he can get into it también, and really he has the attention span and the capacity to be able to have more complicated money talks with him now. So now I can do more complicated lessons with him. But when he was like 8, man, there was no way. All I could do is like, here's how money works. Just make sure you don't overspend, stuff like that. So, keep that in mind cuando you're doing this with your kids. And avoid making it a negative experience for them, porque, that's going to create that resistance from them. No van a querer, to be involved anymore if you're like making it a bad experience for them. Por ejemplo, like when they were teaching us math, or like if Jimmy has 4 apples, y como los regañaban when we couldn't understand the concept and we would get the wrong answer. You don't want to do that with this. Like, just give them that grace. Remember que son kids, they're learning. It's a long process. It's it's gonna be for a while. This is gonna be take years for them to build up these skills and learn all this financial literacy. And it's even me, I'm still continuing to learn. You're gonna continue to learn, because a few years ago no tenías que preocupar about high interest rates, and now we do. And so you're always constantly learning, and just keep them involved in that learning process with you as well, and just making it a good experience for them as you teach them this. Have that patience, and consistency is key. Let them make mistakes, let them ask questions, encourage them to have like discussions. Like my stepson, when he gets started, oh my god, he will go for, he's like his dad. Like when he starts a rant, no lo puedes parar. And so like my stepson gets really passionate, and starts talking about money, and and also like ya cuando empiezan a hacer más cosas, like for example, my stepson, ya que tiene su checking account, stuff like that, we're gonna start celebrating his financial achievements, like that he saved $100, yay, stuff like that. And then just being there, making it as positive for them as possible. And because by doing this, let us this early start, and that's gonna help reduce that financial anxiety, because so many of us in the Latinx community that we deal with. Like I still am dealing with my financial anxiety. Like like it sticks with you. It's a really hard thing to overcome. And by taking these steps to set your kid up for success, like you're going to reduce that financial anxiety, because they are going to be better prepared for things than we were. And it's going to put them on a path for, financial security, financial freedom, and for them to start building wealth and closing that racial wealth gap. But yeah, hopefully these tips help you out in getting that ball rolling to start teaching your kids financial literacy. Yes, I'm seeing a lot of y'all already taking those steps already, and it's freaking awesome, which kind of gave me the idea to make this an actual podcast episode, and and share my tips, lo que estoy haciendo, to help others to start doing it as well. Other than that, that's it for this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Adios. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and share so others may find this podcast. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can email me at info.moneychisme@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow me on all my social medias that are listed below. Hasta la próxima. Bye.